What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for clicking on this video. I actually already made a video about this, gosh, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't explain it well enough because I've been getting comments and comments and comments and comments of, here are my measurements, what is my body type? I'm gonna re-explain it today. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna explain it more thoroughly and you are going to understand. I swear, it is my mission to make you understand. So let's do it. Please ignore the hoodie. I am very chilly right now. First thing I wanted to go over is just what the basic 5 body types are. So you have hourglass, pear, apple, rectangle, and inverted triangles. We are going to go over each one of them today. I'm gonna give you guys examples of what they look like just so you can kind of get a gauge if your body also looks that way. I also wanna say every single body type is absolutely gorgeous. Whichever one you have is not the wrong thing. I know society leans towards one thing right now, but honestly through the years, all of the different body types used to be like the it one. And honestly, we're in a change of it was hourglass and now I feel like it's kind of going more towards pear. No body type is ugly. All of them are beautiful. Body positivity here. Do not shame yourself nor others. Thank you. Okay, so let's go over each body type really quickly. Hourglass. Hourglass is when your body looks like an hourglass. So your shoulders and your hips meet and you have a little divot in the middle. Rectangle is when your stomach kind of doesn't do the indentation. It kind of just goes straight down. Inverted triangle is when your shoulders are bigger than your hips. Pear is when your hips are bigger than your shoulders. Apple is when you don't really have a defined waist. You got them long legs and arms that like showcase your beauty. So yeah, those are the 5 different body types. Now that you know kind of what those are, here are some ways that you can figure out what you are. So one way that you can figure out what your body type is to kind of just like look in the mirror, and now that you kind of have a gauge for what they are, this could be something that you could do. Just kind of look and see like how your shape is. Do you have an indentation in your stomach? If you do, then you're not a rectangle nor an apple. You know, if your hips are a lot bigger than your shoulders, then you can kind of, you know, that's kind of like a pear. There's this one girl on TikTok, I actually saw her go to a mirror and take a marker and draw little dots on where her shoulders were, dots on where her like stomach was, like her waist, and then dots on where her hips were. And then she took a step back and kind of like looked at the mirror and tried to figure out what shape it was. Did it look more like an hourglass, an apple, a pear, you know, things like that. That is another way that you could do it. The best way to figure out what your body type is to measure it. So you're gonna need one of these babies. I will put a link to one of these down below. They're super cheap. It's like a tape measure, but it's not hard. It moves with you. This is basically what it looks like. There's different colors you can get in these too. Like I said, I will put it in my Amazon storefront. I will link it down below so that you guys can get one. Again, they're super cheap. Honestly, worth it. That way you can always, you know, if you're ever curious, if you lost weight, if you want to figure stuff out, you can always measure yourself again. I actually measuring myself for this video lost an inch on my hips. So if you don't have one, you can borrow one from a friend, or you know, you can use a piece of string, wrap yourself with it, make a little mark, and then measure that on a measuring tape. That's also something you can do. With this, you are going to measure your shoulders, your bust, your waist, and your hips. Every single measurement is important. Do not miss one. Do not skip it. So I'm actually going to measure my body type with you guys. I think it's important just so you can get a feel for a person doing it, so you kind of know what to do and what to look for and how to do things. So let's do it. All right, so here I am. We are going to measure my body type. I recommend putting your hair up just because sometimes it gets in the way. Another thing, you want to wear tight clothes, not something that's like clinging to you so hard that you have marks on your skin, but just something that is not super loose. It's just, it fits your body. First thing is you are going to measure your shoulders. You want to try to get kind of to the top of your shoulders, not to a point of where it's like lapping over, but just like the biggest point of your shoulders. Make sure there's no gapping in the tape. Make sure it is tight all the way around you, but don't make it so tight where it's just like, that's not the accurate measurement. Like you're squeezing yourself together, but you want that for each measurement as well. Next, you are going to do your bust, and I am wearing a bra. I recommend you not, just because the extra padding can add measurement things, especially if you're wearing like a push-up bra or something like you're gonna have a bigger bust than you actually have if you wear a bra. But if you feel more comfortable wearing one, or you're doing this with somebody, you can wear one. Just try to make it with like minimal padding. So I turned around and you could actually see that the measuring tape was a little low in comparison to what I was trying to do. So I raised it, made sure that it was straight, and the measurement for my bust ended up being a 34. Next, we are going to do my waist. I did push up my shirt just so that you guys could kind of see what was going on, exactly where I was measuring. Well, the place you want to do this at is right above your belly button, where the indentation hits the exact middle. If you can't really find that middle point, you can kind of scrunch to the side and see where your stomach is going in. As you could see, mine was where that tape was. I do have a large torso, so that's why it looks like it's a little bit higher than directly above my belly button. That measurement ended up being a 27. Next is your hips. When I first started doing this, I couldn't figure out like where to measure my hips. I was like, okay, my booty. But I actually had more of my thighs sticking out. My measurement was bigger farther down. So I had to realize that I am tall as all hell and had to kind of like lower where I was measuring. So when I measured in my previous spot, it was a 39. But when I went down, it was actually a 40. Now this used to be a 41. So now I'm a 40. But you can kind of see it looks a little low, but it's just where my hips hit. So what I would do here is just try to measure where the biggest point of your hips are. So now that we know what my measurements are, we are going to figure out what my body type is. This is where we need to make sure we have full transparency and understanding of what exactly this means. If you've gotten this far, great job. I'm proud of you. We got this. This is the complicated part. This is the confusing part, but I believe I believe in you, I believe in us, we got this. Let's just figure out my body type first and go from there. I have an hourglass body type, and this is how I know I have one. So, my shoulders were 39 inches. My hips were 40 inches. Based on just those two measurements, I can conclude that my hips and my shoulders are very similar in inches, right? So they pretty much match. For it to be a different body type, let's say I was a pear, my hips would have to be 2 inches bigger than what my shoulders were. I feel like that's where the confusion starts. So your shoulders and your hips need to be within 2 inches of each other. So that means that could be either an hourglass, an apple, or a rectangle. So now we're going to our waist. My waist is 27 inches. If your waist is more than 8 inches smaller than your hips or your shoulders, then you are indeed an hourglass. So my waist was 27. So 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So as you can see, it's over 8. So since it's over 8, that concludes that I am indeed an hourglass. Okay. So now we know how to figure out what an hourglass is. Your shoulders and your hips have to be within 2 inches of each other, and your waist has to be 8 inches smaller than your hips or your shoulders. Now we're going on to bust measurement. Let's say that all of my measurements were the same, but my bust was a 45. Because I am over 4 inches bigger than my hips on my bust, that makes me top heavy. So then you would want to wear clothing that are more suited towards an inverted triangle. So inverted triangle means that your shoulders are bigger than your hip. Let's say I had a 40 hip and I had a 43 shoulder, then I would be an inverted triangle. But if my bust was 4 inches bigger than my hips, that means I am an inverted triangle. I'm going to wear inverted triangle clothing because I'm still top heavy. It's hard because it's like, technically, if you got like a breast reduction, you would then be an hourglass because your shoulders and your hips meet. But because you've been blessed, right? You kind of have to take that into consideration when it comes to clothing yourself and making sure you don't look too heavy on top. You want everything to flow naturally and be even. I hope you guys are still with me. If you have questions, leave them down below. I will answer them. I am dedicated to making sure you guys get this. Next thing we're going to go over is a rectangle body shape. Like I said, your waist has to be 8 inches smaller than your shoulders and your hip measurements. Usually with a rectangle body shape, your shoulders and hips are relatively similar, like they're very close in size, and your waist is also close to that measurement. It doesn't go in 8 inches. It's kind of the same. If your waist is not 8 inches smaller than your shoulders or your hips, you are a rectangle. Next, let's talk about pairs. So pairs are when you're bottom heavy. You have a bigger booty than you do anything else. Usually pairs have a very, very cinched in waist still. So your waist goes in 8 inches, but your shoulders and your hips don't match. So again, if your hips are 2 or more inches bigger than your shoulders, you are a pear shape. One way you can figure out if you're a pear is kind of just like you gain weight in your thigh area or your bootay area, you know? I mean, look, you're blessed. Next is apple. Usually apples, your shoulders and your hips match. They're very close in size, but your waist measurement is 2 or more inches bigger than your shoulders and your hips. That would then make you an apple. A lot of times apples gain weight in their stomach area, but they have beautiful legs and arms. Like there's no weight here or lower half. It's just you gain it in your stomach. So that's one way you can kind of figure out if you're an apple. To conclude, those are the body types. Those are how you figure it out. Again, I would invest in one of these things. If you're really curious of what you are and you want exact measurements, this will save your life. I will say this is another thing that can be a little confusing for some people, but I do want to say it because I do feel like it's important. When I started this journey of figuring out body types, figuring out what my body type was, trying to figure out how I wanted to dress myself, I thought I was an inverted triangle because when I look at myself in the mirror, my shoulders look bigger than my hips. So I was like, okay, I'm an inverted triangle. But when I did this, I realized I'm not an inverted triangle. I am an hourglass. Because as you just saw, we just did, my hips were bigger than my shoulders. And I was like, that's insane because it looks like my shoulders are bigger. So when that is the case, when you kind of look at yourself and you look one body type, but you are another, you can lean towards a body type, but still be another. If I had to choose between wearing like fluffy sleeves or something that kind of jutes out at my hip, I would prefer to wear something that goes out at my hip in like a tight top. Okay, I think we did it. I feel confident. If you are still confused, it's okay. It's a confusing subject. Just rewatch this video. Check out my other video. Maybe I explain things in a way that makes even more sense to you in that one. I will link it up here and down below. Also, if you figured out that you kind of lean towards one body type, but you are another, go with both. Like, you can wear both of those things. If you want more videos like this, definitely leave a comment down below. Tell me what you want, what body type you are, if you figured it out. If you need help figuring it out, let me know. I'll be happy to do so. I hope this video was less confusing and helped you guys figure out what you were. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.